Left to drift, somewhat aimless, as in Ebit KD's song, this journey feels deeply disheartening, and sadly it has already become a harsh reality. So a tapioca factory is already on our premises, and a factory to process Aren sap is already there, not to be used now. The cornerstone for aiding development has not yet been laid. Port use is not allowed, and all of that has simply come to a complete grinding halt. What exactly is the real problem, sir? I really don't know why it has to be so difficult. Meanwhile, all of this surely will help the community. Peace be upon you, and may God's mercy and blessings be with you always. Good afternoon. I hope you are well on this fine day. Today we're back again on Sample Side, bringing you more conversation and reflection and a very great sense of gratitude and appreciation. We can meet face to face with one of the figures. I think he's a national figure, since he has already traveled extensively from region to region with information that is truly extraordinary. And for he has also journeyed widely from place to place with information that is nothing short of extraordinary. Up next, we will meet with Mr. Will Smith. I call him simply Sir, or Mr. Willie, Willie. What our daily routines are these days. Today, I have developed systems that are truly sustainable in land management and for production that does not depend on fossil fuels, because oil, coal, and gas will not be around for long. So, if we use fossil-based systems, we will be in difficulties in the near future. And Indonesia also bears obligations under the COP21 agreement, concluded in Paris, where I acted as a speaker representing Indonesia as well. And we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And at that time, Indonesia was the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases worldwide. Even though we did not have the same scale of industry as China or the United States, all this was due to environmental damage, including our forests and peatlands. If forests are damaged and peatlands degraded across the archipelago, that means a very substantial amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And that is what happens when forest fires occur, such as the ones recorded in 1998 and again in 2015. The smoke would travel as far as the Arctic and extend to reach us. And if it settles on the ice, the surface ice becomes dark and traps more heat. It begins to melt. If the sea starts to open, it would warm the land even more quickly, and that would significantly affect the flow of water. Across the entire world, our tropical country, Katolik is affecting people worldwide. There is, in fact, a sustained interest in creating a system that assists communities to continually achieve higher yields from their land, but not to rely on artificial fertilizers. Because if PT Pupuk Kaltim goes any further, it may no longer be able to produce urea. Because urea is manufactured from natural gas. If the natural gas supply runs out completely, who will still be able to carry on producing? Those palm oil companies are prosperous, yet the local people are to be pitied. What will happen to them thereafter? So we developed a practical system using organic fertilizers with a long-lasting fertilizer in the form of biochar. That is its name for farming soils. There is a type of charcoal produced under a carefully controlled temperature system. If that is added and thoroughly mixed with bacteria and then introduced into the soil, land productivity could be 2 to 3 times higher. It has water retention 5 to 7 times higher, which means that if there are problems with the dry season, the crops will endure. They won't die of drought, and people won't go hungry. These are the key solutions we're pursuing, so that a great many people can be helped without having to rely on goods that must be brought in from outside the country or from abroad. Therefore, today our focus is on renewable energy, sir. Is that right? Yes, indeed. Anything goes. What aspects can be optimized? If we're talking about our own region, which area are you active in, sir? Yes. Here in East Kalimantan, I have been trusted by Mr. Hashim to develop an intercrop system that can also generate energy from biomass. So if we can convert wood using a technology called pyrolysis, it becomes a form of charcoal of a certain kind, but it's almost like activated carbon. It can be used to filter water or to reduce pollution, or developed further to the next stage into gas and biochar, which acts as a permanent fertilizer. so it's somewhat difficult to grasp at first sight. In essence, that gas could serve as a material capable of replacing petrol derived from the earth, from its oil refinery for practical purposes, and biochar would become a permanent fertilizer to return to the soil with the nutrients that were in the biomass within the plant material itself as a resource for future growth. In this way, we again have a completely closed cycle that recycles itself. But the gas produced, which becomes energy, originates solely from photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the fundamental life process by which living systems utilize sunlight, carbon dioxide, and rainfall to sustain life. So there's nothing from the land that cannot be used to harvest energy from the sun into fuel for a tank to power a car for daily transport or cooking. So that is the basic principle. And then if we're talking about the Aren palm, it yields ethanol. If this sugar is fermented, it can become alcohol suitable for drinking, but it can also be turned into alcohol for lamps or for sterilization or to power its engine. Like in Papua, people there are paying up to 50,000 rupiah per liter for petrol. It could be more profitable and may serve as an alternative to all that you have explained regarding the ongoing efforts being undertaken today, and it raises questions about how much the local communities themselves are taking part, sir. If we have already brought elite seedlings from North Sulawesi, from the Aren palm, and if we now travel from Kenangan all the way to kilometer 15, we see many Aren trees there. We should then speak with the community to determine how many people are presently living off the trees we had previously brought to gauge the situation. So they have clear evidence that every day he can produce 15 to 20 liters of sap, the sap's water included, and that this amount can yield about 2 kilograms of sugar, indeed. If the Aren sugar that you can buy in shops today, at present its price is roughly 40 to 50,000 rupiah. As for granulated sugar, that is gula semut. So when it comes to gula semut, just imagine how many rupiah that would cost in total. Back when I got married in Indonesia, my dowry was 6 Aren palm trees. That's what was really interesting, sir. Yes, I learned that you could marry an Indonesian person and the dowry would be those Aren trees. How could that be, sir? I became perplexed too, so I wondered how you could obtain a beautiful girl for only the price of 6 Aren trees like this. It turns out those 6 trees are enough to sustain a new family, so that's when I started learning. So I wrote a lot about the knowledge of producing Aren trees, and I looked at what the problems were in developing it. It turns out there are several problems to be faced, 20 problems that must be solved. One of them, if we make sugar, we have to boil the water. To remove the water and the sugar would come out, but that requires a lot of firewood. So if there's a lot of Aren sap, that in effect means the forest is exhausted and the ecosystem is strained. Oh, what is the solution to that? That's one. Then if each farmer who makes the sugar from that sap does it themselves, some mix in papaya, some mix in coconut to obtain volume. They also use lime in the process as part of the processing. There are various methods, and in practice it's difficult. There is also bisulfite that they use as a preservative, which varies by region and supplier. There are no buyers in large scale because the product is not uniform, which makes scaling up risky. So that's another challenge. Then what about logistics? Because if we realize Aren sap spoils very quickly, becoming acidic and starting to ferment, that makes proper handling essential. How to safeguard that process, how the logistics can be arranged so that it can be processed quickly to achieve its standard product. Then how to market it, to gain traders' trust and access. There must be organic certification to satisfy global preference. Only then will people be willing to buy and pay premium prices. And if they know that Aren trees only grow in mixed forests, this is what the world loves because they regard biodiversity of the species as an important thing. So there is marketing, there is ecology, there are processes, there is logistics. All these factors must be combined. Please let us talk about the Aren problem. Or, how large is our potential for the PPU area itself in our assessment? If I look at the evidence from the trees we have planted, and you can clearly see how they are already producing in practice. We have also built the factory there in the ITC area, but we are not allowed to obtain any further industrial permits. So the tapioca factory already exists in our area. The factory to process Aren sap already exists, and it may not be used as things stand right now. The cornerstone intended to assist development has not yet been laid, and we are not allowed to use the harbor. All of that has come to a halt. What's the problem, sir? Permits. Permits. I don't know why it has to be so difficult when all of this will help the community in its infrastructure and in the job market. So yes, the bureaucracy, in my view, even when I was a minister myself, there is a part of the bureaucracy that would submit proposals to Parliament for the main laws. That is the central issue, I would say, and it blocks progress for development. But this bureaucracy also slows us down in developing that new pattern, and the new circumstances are difficult to fit into the existing system. In practical terms, today we already have the tools to support everything you have built or done. You can clearly see that our infrastructure is already built and the tools are in place. The management of all systems has been set up, tested thoroughly, and proven to work reliably. But to start production is not allowed. Industry approvals are no longer granted for it because it is formally regarded as an industry, even though it is in effect an industry intended to serve the public, for the public good. Today, what about our farmers and those who work the land across the country, at this very moment and beyond? How should their results be properly managed? Indeed, quite many of them also end up as drinks, sadly. And that is a pity, because if those drinks were to become alcoholic beverages, that could cause social problems across the board. They could provoke serious social problems. It would be better if we steered them towards becoming sugar instead, and that would yield a product with higher earnings. I firmly believe that would be the better approach. Therefore, there should be considerations to give it a try. But today, the situation is bureaucratic. Indeed, bureaucratic. Come on a little, sir. Perhaps this is the last item to talk about the issues facing IKM. Because this has just been shown by the minister and handed over to the speaker of the DPR. And today it represents welcome news, especially for East Kalimantan, with Penanjang Pasir Utara among the areas that have been newly designated as SME regions. In terms of supporting discussions about companies or talking about the ICI issue, there are several potential points that could significantly help our people there. The dam, about which we have managed to obtain a small amount of information. What, if any, is the current condition of our dam, sir? Yes, that is ICI. If we examine the satellite image, I could actually show you because we monitor this forest from space on a precise 2-day cycle. We have a complete, all-encompassing picture of the whole area. Everything around it already shows fires and openings, which means erosion is likely to happen and the soil fertility will decline. That area, Itzi, is the only tract that remains green. If we are to secure water for 2.5 million people, we require a river catchment large enough and still in good condition. Well, in Itzi, Mr. Hashim at Arsari wants to turn it into a conservation area that would also serve as an ecotourism site. But this lake, covering 4,200 hectares, would also be a site for floating solar panels. So on the water, at a height of 305 meters above sea level, with the temperature, humidity, and evaporation affecting it, the panels would be about 14% more efficient. Therefore, we could generate up to 1.5 gigawatts of renewable energy from sunlight alone under the lake's conditions. The lake's islands would also be places to release wildlife that can no longer be returned to the wild because of bullet injuries to the eyes or birds that cannot fly. Those islands could be visited by tourists. There could also be an education center. The lake itself could also generate electricity from its hydropower. Not very much, only 2 megawatts, but still useful. 2 MW if we could obtain it for free from the flow. Thus, from the lake itself, by gravity alone, we can carry water to the PPU, to Balikpapan, to Karyangao, to IKN, and even as far as Tenggarong and Samarinda, indeed. If we look at the Mahakam River at present, it is extremely heavy indeed. Its spread today from palm oil plantations bears pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, insecticides, and herbicides. All of those poisons flow into the Mahakam River. From coal mines, the arsenic enters. From the gold mines, now there is cyanide or mercury. That river's toxic water is what also kills. From the forest clearings up there, along both the downstream side and the upstream side of the river, there has been a substantial amount of erosion. So now when we look at the satellite image, it appears entirely yellow and is full of mud spilling out from the banks. So the dredging industry is disrupted and presenting difficulties for operations. But what else occurs includes frequent floods, or during the dry season, prolonged droughts. Seawater intrudes far inland, and disease outbreaks appear in new places. So on the Mahakam River, there is no other place left that can be relied upon for the safety and well-being of East Kalimantan if that forest is damaged. Thus, when we defend the forest, it must not be damaged, but transformed into employment that pays well. We observe the trees and gather their fruits. There is bamboo, there is rattan, and there is the scent-producing tree. There are many kinds of tree products that yield resin, honey from the forest, wax, dyes, and other useful forest riches. All of this creates far more jobs without harming the forest. And indeed, this people can, through such an intercropping system, thrive. It is found in many places. Here, the Dayak people have a name for it. Lembao Lembo. This is the Dayak intercropping system, practiced for centuries and proven over hundreds of years. It does not damage the environment, yet it can sustain Dayak communities and their families. Why should we not learn from nature, which possesses a system for circulating even haram elements? It captures sunlight and turns it into energy for useful products, while also preventing erosion. It keeps water clean. This approach supports soil health, biodiversity, and resilience, connecting forest and village life. So as I mentioned earlier with the biochar system, it will provide drinking water. This approach helps communities prosper without sacrificing the forest, and it supports sustainable livelihoods for generations to come. If you turn off the tap, there is no longer any need to purchase bottled water right now. It could be done directly with exactly the same quality as Singapore, without exception. So, if we can successfully save the forest in the new capital, everyone's health will be good for all people everywhere across the region. We will undoubtedly see death rates fall across the board. Perhaps this might be the last time for you. Could you please give the public a brief, accessible message about the state of the environment for everyone's awareness? Yes, our situation here in Indonesia is quite heavy indeed and deeply worrying. If you look, there are many people who keep claiming millions of hectares in various places around the country. The reality is that more than half of Kalimantan's forests have already suffered severe damage, and the soil there is poor. If we were to clear more vegetation, this soil would be destroyed and would become barren. At last, we are left with alang-alang grass, like the song of Ibit Gad. This journey feels deeply heartrending, and it is a pity that it has already become reality. Our position in the Catholic Setiwa, where there is always sunshine, where there is rain all year round, and the land remains so vast, we have the potential to become the richest in the world. But it must be managed properly. Now, this is my hope as a scientist. God willing, may this science help improve the fortunes of many people. In East Kalimantan, I hope many will learn and adopt environmentally friendly technologies and see the evidence that already exists, how their livelihoods could be better. Aren palm farmers in North Sulawesi, where we built the world's first Aren sugar factory, from 30,000 rupiah per day for the poorest people, now averaging about 320,000 rupiah per day. But there are farmers who tap more trees, who are strong and enthusiastic. Their wages are above 1 million rupiah per day. You can see the evidence. Thank you, sir, for taking up your time. It is a pride for us, the Sampol Syed team, to have hosted us in discussions about any issues that have been undertaken. Not many have watched this yet. Not a discussion. Hopefully next time we can discuss at length. Talk about the issues of activities, because I have not asked many questions yet. Talk about the issue of orangutans. There are also many requests, Sir Tuluk Balikpapan. Wow, extraordinary potential. With Bikantan, new studies show that in Tuluk Balikpapan there are 2,350 Bikantan. This is the largest Bikantan population in the world. The mangroves in PPU are the most valuable in Southeast Asia. But there are still people who do not understand, who think more about their prawns than the climate, thinking about the crabs that the community with the fish they can obtain and the potential for tourism. May we all truly realize this natural world is the source of life for all of us. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Okay, well, thank you indeed. I am Dedi Syed Hassan and Mr. Willie. For my part, thank you very much. If that burden should fall upon me, may the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be with you.